Hey, Allison, thanks for coming to the podcast. Appreciate it a lot. Today is, I think, November 4th, and you are dressed up as a scarecrow.
Yeah. So I woke up and looked at my phone today, and my phone is like dying. So it displayed the wrong date, I think is what happened.
Whoa, it said October 31st instead of November 4th. That's such a weird glitch.
I know, right? I think it might be haunted, actually. I think that could be the reason.
There's ghosts in that
Great,
phone.
just like this episode of Podpodcastcast. Boom! We did the cold open.
Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to Podpodcastcast. I'm Sam.
And I'm Honor.
Honor, I really like that you're embracing the fact that we're recording this on Halloween and you decided to do like a witch voice.
Yeah.
But not like, it's like the voice that was in my little, when I was little, I had this little plastic cauldron
Yeah.
where if you put your hand in it and took candy out for Halloween, it would make witch sounds at you. It would say, "Oh, you're so spooky," and that's the exact character that you went with, and I like that.
Yeah, I'm going for Candy Clarence Aisle after Halloween because that's the vibe.
I like that. I thought you said Candy Clarence Aisle, and I thought that was a person, and I was confused.
Oh.
Speaking of confused, we're joined today by Allison. Allison, hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Why is that speaking of confused?
Because he's bad at segues.
You know, I think that's how. No, I think I'm good at segues. If you ever saw me taking a tour of downtown Boston, you know I'm very good at segues.
Uh-huh.
I did. It was on a segue.
Okay,
This is a
okay.
very specific
makes
reference to an experience I had. No, I think most people are confused when we start off the podcast because we kind of just throw it at you. But honestly, Allison, maybe I'm a little confused because you're dressed up for Halloween.
Yes.
You're doing other things today,
Yes, yeah. In fact, Podpodcastcast is not the only thing I have to do today.
which is crazy.
Crazy.
Because most people need to lie down, need to take a cold shower. They just need to stop doing things after we record.
Yeah.
Right.
But you're being very brave. Yeah, so you're a scarecrow, which is the first time that anyone has come into this studio with what I might describe as a threatening amount of eyeshadow. You know, I feel,
Yes.
you know, every time you look at me, I'm like, oh no.
I
Like,
think your other guests need to step up their game a little bit because I'm not wearing that much.
Yeah.
yeah, I guess that's true.
It is true.
It's a good scarecrow costume. I like
thank
it.
you.
And it's very smart. It's practical. It's makeup, which you've done excellently. But otherwise, it's just a straw hat and a plaid shirt, which is kind of genius.
Yeah. I put it together in 20 minutes.
That's like, I think that's the goal of adult costumes. You know what I mean? It's just like, it looks good enough, but is not too much. You know, it's not too much effort.
You want a costume that could also just be an outfit.
Yeah,
yeah.
right. You gotta, you know, take a test today or whatever you're doing.
Sort of a plausible deniability thing.
You gotta see your boss. You don't wanna, you know, you don't wanna see, you know, you just want like, I'm not that into it, I swear.
Yeah.
You know? And speaking of not that into us and a podcast, we should change that. Let's get in to our podcast today. Honor, I want you to start us off because you told me what podcast you're reviewing, and I actually really want to talk about this as I've heard other people talk about it, and I'm interested. I keep getting whispers through the grapevine. So, Honor, can you just lay it on me?
Yes.
You're talking about...
I'm talking about 99% Invisible, which I think is fair to say is one of those sort of NPR-esque big names in podcasting. It's one of the shows that, you know, started as a radio show, so that's how you know it's legit and not just two bros with mics.
Is it by NPR?
No, it is not. It is...
Gotcha.
It's moved between owners and stuff. Right now it's a Sirius XM thing. But it started as a collaboration between San Francisco's public radio station and the American Institute of Architects, also in San Francisco. Because it is a podcast about, originally I believe it was going to only be like architectural design, but it then was sort of broadened to urban design in general, and from there has been just design. So it's a podcast that covers a ton of things.
Yeah, I think we might have had somebody talk about it on Podpodcastcast before, or maybe someone just talked about it in my personal life. It's about design, which is such a broad concept. I mean, is it just how things are made? Is it like that TV show, or is it more just, hey, here's an item, what are the aspects of design that lead it to do the things that it does? Like, what angle do they look at?
It's almost hard to tell what the angle is. There seems to be a little bit more direction in the early episodes, especially because this started as a program where the goal was a 4.5-minute story. So the early episodes of this are extremely short. They're all like 5 to 10 minutes long for the first several seasons, which is many years. So it sort of just feels like you can scroll through the episodes of this podcast. There will be a thing that an episode is about. And then once you get into it, the thing they're talking about is sort of the man-made world that we've designed. You know, they say in several episodes they're not interested in the natural world. They're interested in how humans have affected the world that we're living in, the choices that we make to shape how a certain thing functions. Like one of the very, very early episodes is about a company that was wanting to design a better toothbrush, and like all the decisions that go into designing a toothbrush, which is so specific. But then there's also episodes like about a VR music thing. That was another early one. I listened to one that was about how we make like antidotes for snake venom. All kinds of things. There's ones that are about actual buildings and architecture and stuff. Truly an insane plethora of subjects are covered on this podcast.
So you said they kind of started off as really short. Now have they evolved into like longer, 30 minutes, an hour, or what does it look like now?
Yeah. So the episodes have gotten longer, especially as one of the big things they do on this podcast is they would get like experts in the field of whatever they're talking about to talk to. And so I feel like that conversation has become more of a part of these episodes as the show has gone on. And especially, you know, when they're a bigger show, they can get better guests. And so those conversations just go longer and the episodes have gotten longer. So now it's like a 30 to 40 minute episode usually.
So is it almost like, is it like news? Is it almost like current events? Like, hey, you heard about the ship that blocked the Suez Canal. Like, what's the Suez Canal and how's it designed? Or is it still just kind of like, hey, I was walking down the street and I saw there was gum there. What's up with gum? You know, like, is that more the angle?
I think it's probably closer to the latter. I think a decent way to phrase this, because it's kind of what I was thinking while I was listening, is it feels like This American Life of objects or, you know, things, because sometimes they're talking about concepts like game design or something.
Sure.
But instead of people, they're talking about a thing. So it's not generally usually connected to like a specific event, but like I really liked the snake venom antidote episode, and that one was just kind of like, you know, a lot of people don't know how snake venom antidotes are made. Did you know that most of them are made inside the body of a horse? Because its blood will make... Yeah, they inject a horse with small amounts of venom over a certain period of time so that the horse builds up antibodies. Because a horse's immune system is similar enough to humans that we can then use those. But a horse is such a huge animal that we can make the copious amounts of blood needed, and also it won't like die to the amount of snake venom they have to use. It's mostly unaffected.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's like crazy stuff like that. So it's like just opening little windows into these areas, because one of the things they talk about, the show's called 99% Invisible, and it's based on this idea that there's design choices all around us, shaping our lives every moment of every day, but you don't really notice them unless something goes wrong normally. So you need someone to explain to you, hey, here's this really cool thing that affects your life and you don't know about. So let me tell you about it. And it's really cool.
I am enjoying the horse snake venom thing from a design perspective.
Yeah.
Like that is an interesting angle to look at that problem from.
Yeah.
What's your job? I'm a project manager for horse venom.
Yeah. It's also the same process we've been using for like 200 years, which is wild.
Are you telling me they're in 1825
Yes.
sticking horses with snakes? I don't think so. No way.
They were doing that. And then in that episode, they're like, okay, so why aren't we like working on more updated stuff? And they're like, we are, but there's not a lot of money that's been put into this area of research for a long time, yada, yada, yada. And they talk even more about the system that goes into allowing people to work on developing and designing these processes to make medicine.
I thought you were going to say, yeah, I get that you want better than horse venom, but we can't do better.
We can't do better.
It's just the best thing. I'm sorry.
Right now, it is just the best thing that we have for the most part.
That's delightful. Is there like a regular host to this show, or
Yes.
is it more?
So as the show's gone on, they've gotten more guest hosts, and it's almost feels like reporters in that it's these people who, like, they have something that's really interesting to them, and then they go and talk to an expert about it, like this snake venom episode, and then they will come back and, you know, do the episode. Again, it feels very This American Life-esque, but the main creator and host is Roman Mars, which is his real name, and
That's
is
not
awesome.
true.
That's
It
insane.
is.
Not true.
It's his
That's
real
insane.
name, which is crazy.
Roman
I looked it
Mars?
up like 4 different ways because I was like, that can't be real, but it is.
That sounds like the second book of a great book series.
I'm reading
Yes.
the Aeneid right now. Like that he that's like he walked out of the book.
He did.
The Aeneid.
Yeah, it's a famous, like, in the Homeric style, like, epic poem
Yeah.
about the founding of Rome.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It also
Interesting.
like inspired parts of like Dante's Inferno and stuff.
Yes, yeah, it was written by Virgil, and Virgil's the guide from Dante's Inferno.
Yeah.
I feel so uncultured in this moment.
This is like a whole class I took because I'm in Italy, so I took an entire class on Dante Alighieri, so this came up.
That rocks.
I had to use my applicable knowledge.
Finally, yes.
Yes.
Well, Honor, this kind of sounds like it rocks. Like,
It
I
does.
have been told about 99% Invisible, and I think I should listen to it. But what would you rate it? You know, what is it worth me taking a listen, or should I just move on to something else?
I think this is something that really so many people could enjoy because you really can just scroll through the list of episodes and there will be an episode about something you like, and you can click on that episode, jump right into it, and they'll tell you interesting things that you probably don't know about whatever this thing is you like. Like, I was able to scroll through and be like, snakes are awesome. I like game design. I like VR experience. Sure. Like, there's so much, and you can just pick and choose whatever you like. It's really well produced. It has interesting music backing, and the production quality is really good. There's really very few like cons to this show. I would say maybe it won't interest everyone exactly because it is a little, like, just for lack of a better way to phrase it, nerdy. Like, they're getting real in the weeds about stuff and being like, here's how these processes work and the design decisions that went into making this. Like, that's a little bit of a nerdy thing that maybe not everyone would like, but I think if they're willing to jump into it, anyone could enjoy this. So I would rate this probably like a 4.5 out of 5 pods.
Whoa. For a brief moment, I thought we were going to get a 5 there.
Honestly, I think I would. I think I'd rate it like, hold on, I need a calculator.
Honor has to run the number. I don't even, what do you calculate?
I'm going to rate it 4.95 out of 5 because that's 99% of 5.
There you go.
That is the actual honest
Fantastic.
rating. It's really good.
That's excellent. Absolutely
Yeah.
excellent.
Also, it's been running for like over 15 years, so there is an episode about something you enjoy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's 100% invisible?
Your podcast?
The podcast I'm talking about.
Is that the name of the podcast? You found a podcast that's 100% invisible?
Yeah,
that's
right. That's right. It's a spoof. It's a spinoff.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about a podcast called The Game Dev Field Guide. So some of the listeners might know that Podpodcastcast is a production of Weird Mage. Now, Weird Mage is a studio with me, Honor, and Jasper, who made the theme song to Podpodcastcast and has also been a guest on Podpodcast. And so Weird Mage does several things, but one of the things it does is make games, and video games specifically. And so I have been wanting to listen to a podcast to learn more about video games and how I can get better at creating video games. And so that's where the Game Dev Field Guide came in. The Game Dev Field Guide is made by a guy named Zachavelli. And I really thought at first those were two separate names. His name is Zach and Avelli. But that's not true. That is one name. That is his first name.
Like a wizard.
Do people ever call him Zach, or does he say Zachavelli?
He said, "Hello, I'm Zachavelli." Like that's not a great impression, but that is what he said. It's accurate. And so the Game Dev Field Guide is a really kind of simple introduction to making video games. Now, it kind of assumes a little bit that you are interested in making video games and that you probably have heard other things about it, which I think is fair, because if you are listening to a podcast about it, you've probably watched fun YouTube videos about it as well. You've probably, played some video games and had some thoughts on it. And so every episode of the Game Dev Field Guide is about one aspect of making video games. It's usually from the perspective of making video games independently, so not like as your full-time job, although some of the advice applies, but a lot of it is as, okay, you've decided to do this as a hobby and maybe try to transition it into a job working independently to make video games. That's kind of its niche. And so that is where a lot of the advice and a lot of the topics are centered. There's a bunch of different topics. So there was one about the money of independent game development. Like, how do you make money at this? Let's do an analysis of this genre. Let's talk about how do you implement stealth mechanics. There's a lot of different kind of things, but they kind of fall into this, okay, we're going to look at a genre. We're going to look at some like specific thing. How do you implement this thing that isn't a different video game into your video game? And then also like, here's like kind of the broader, like if you are trying to be a game developer as a person or as a career, like what does that look like? How do you keep up your motivation and that stuff? So I would say those are probably the three broad categories. And every episode, so if you listen to an episode, I think the most recent ones start with a game dev challenge.
Ooh.
And basically what the game dev challenge is that at the end of the last episode, he asks, well, I guess it's at the start. At the start of the last episode, he asked his followers, hey, so here's the thing that we're going to talk about in this episode. And what would you do about it, right? So one of them was on the ones like how to make money as a game developer. So in this episode, we're going to talk about like video game analytics and the ways to look up like how are different video games like performing, how do they sell. Use one of these tools to find like a genre that sells particularly well, and then like kind of write your thoughts on it. Or sometimes it's broader than that. It's like, how do you use the 3 Ps, to solve this particular problem? Or how does this thing apply to something you've been working on recently? So he does that in the previous episode, and then the Game Dev Challenge, he talks about usually one, but sometimes a few submissions from last week's episode, and he talks about who the winner is, and they win bragging rights. And it's like, this is my favorite submission. You did very good at this. I like it. And then he'll give you the new challenge. Then after that, he moves on to the topic for the day. So he's like, all right, so you want to know how to make a JRPG. I did some research. And then he's going to tell you all the he's like, here are the video games that you might know that are like this. Here are some like design principles and like what can you take away. And I think there's kind of a problem in the modern world, which is we all have internet guys that we listen to or watch, and it's hard to ensure that any of them know what the heck they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
I have no way to know if Zachavelli is a credible, good source of advice for making video games, but I like him. So I think he does a fairly good job. I think he does a fairly good job at kind of giving you what he thinks the lay of the land is and what he's like, all right, I don't know that much about this, right? Or this is my experience. So like one episode that I thought was interesting is how to work on video games on a team, right? Because a lot of people, when they want to make video games, they're like, oh, I've got this really cool idea. Oh, I want to do this thing, right? But a lot of times you need to work on a team to get something done. And so then you have to kind of compromise and trade off your vision with other people. And that's not an easy thing to do. So I think he talked about that kind of from like an abstract framework. He's like, these are what other people have said. And he also folded in his own experience. He's like, okay, so I worked on this team. We were doing this. And there was too many people that were like the creative director. There's too many people that were like, oh, we should do this, we should do that. And so a bunch of it wasn't cohesive, and it felt like a Frankenstein of a creature. But he was also like, but it could go too far, right? He thinks you should have one person that has the vision, but that person shouldn't be like, this is how it's got to be. Otherwise, one, no one wants to work with them, and two, you open yourself up to vulnerabilities. You didn't think about, oh, well, this aspect of the game is not fun or whatever. And I think the advice has been pretty helpful. It's not like I use it all the time, but I do think about it. He has this idea that he comes back to a lot of when you're making a game, you need to be really clear on the kind of fun that you want someone to have. And I think about that a lot, about, okay, when Weird Mage is going to make our next project, right? We've released a few video games. We worked on a board game. We're working on a video game now. When I'm making these projects, I'm thinking about, okay, I got to get out of my head and get into the head of Joe Schmo who's sitting there, and I hand him my controller, and he says, how do I play this game? What kind of fun should he have right away? And I think that has been a really helpful framework for me. So I would go ahead and say that a good pod. I like it.
Sounds good.
Would you say it's enhanced by listening to it live and following along with like the challenges? Have you been listening to it live?
Well, what do you mean when you say live?
Like up to date, listening to most
Sure. No, I
episodes.
haven't. So I did for a little while over the summer. I listened to the most recent ones, but I've not gotten to the point where I'm like, perfect, it's Wednesday. I gotta know, it probably is. He has like a Discord community, and it sounds like that's where you also like you submit, your answers to the challenge. So I think it probably would be helpful. I don't really feel the need to engage with it in that way, I don't really want to like sit down and be like, how do I make my inventory system more aesthetically pleasing? I think they're interesting things to think about, but I think the people who are doing them are probably in different places than me. I think they would be helpful if you're just starting out, right? If you've just started to get into game development and you're like, I've never thought about putting game pieces together before, I think that would be helpful. I also think they'd be helpful if you are farther along, isn't it? Like if you're devoting more of your total time to making video games, and you don't have a particular project in mind. I think someone giving you a series of tasks and say, hey, try this, hey, try that, will give you a wide experience and will help you think holistically about making something for someone else to play and enjoy. But where Weird Mage is at, and we've got our plan set out for the next several months. So like, okay, we have to do this, we have to do that. I don't keep up with it, and I think that feels fine for me. But if you wanted to like get into video games, I think these would probably be fairly good and open-ended exercises to try it out, Yeah, because I think that's what some people want, need a little direction. I think that this would be a good way to get that direction for yourself instead of just being like, I want to make video games. Do I start with Fortnite? Do I start making Fortnite 2? You can't do that. I'm doing that.
You're making Fortnite 2?
I'm making Fortnite 2. That's right, Allison. But I think it's a good pod. I think if you like podcasts and you like making video games, I think it's worth giving it a try. There's a few other game development podcasts out there that I didn't like as much. A lot of them are just like, I invite a guest on and we talk about video games. I'm like, okay, I get it. That's cool. That doesn't really add anything to me. It's just more guys. Whereas Zachavelli here, he has a focused topic and he knows, he's like, okay, I've researched these parts of it and I'm going to kind of take you through it. Almost more informative than pure entertainment or just like dudes hanging out, you know? It's a little more work than just like, hello everyone on Twitch. We've invited 14 people into this call to tell us their favorite way to make Tetris, you know?
Are there multiple ways to make Tetris?
Yeah. You could make it sideways.
Oh,
You
okay.
could make it 3D. There's lots of ways to make Tetris.
I had not considered this as a problem.
This is the major problem of our era. No, it's not. It is a silly example, but I think it is kind of more focused than other podcasts, and I think that's helpful. So, yeah, if you want to kind of learn more about making video games as like a theory, I think this is a good place to start. I would say it's a 3.5 out of 5 podcast. You know, it's not going to change your life. It's not going to explode your brain.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I come back to it every once in a while, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's a good thing, and I'll try to consider that, you know, in the coming week as I like do my work. I think it's a good place to start. You might like it. I like it. You might like it.
Yeah.
That's a great review.
You might like this podcast.
Speaking of maybe, just maybe liking a podcast, Allison, you're bringing on a podcast.
I'm so excited.
And I'm bracing myself.
Mm-hmm.
Allison, what are you talking about?
So today I am being very unoriginal on the grand scheme of Podpodcastcast guests, and I'm going to be talking about Critical Role.
It's back. The dark specter
It's haunting.
rises
So
again.
It's haunting
good.
you guys. It's very appropriate for Halloween. I'm talking about Campaign 4 today. So the first, as we are recording this, the first 4 episodes are out, and that is the overture for their campaign.
Yes, and I just want to, for listeners that aren't familiar with D&D, which is hard to imagine considering all the D&D podcasts we talk about, Critical Role is probably the biggest Dungeons & Dragons podcast. They play Dungeons & Dragons. It's long.
Yes.
There have been 3 seasons previously.
Yes.
And now we're on season 4. And the average length of an episode on season 4 is 4
4
hours?
and a half hours.
4.5 hours.
Yes.
And so they are 16 hours in, and I'm sure there's a lot more to go. Is that right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And also there was kind of some, I wouldn't want to say drama, but there was a bit of a hoopla about this season because Matthew Mercer, who is usually the dungeon master, the guy who runs the game, is no longer. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So Critical Role being a real-time play D&D podcast, you know, you got to have a dungeon master. You have to have the guy running the show. And Matt Mercer, a professional voice actor, had been the dungeon master for over 10 years at this point, over 3 campaigns. And now he is acting as a player in the campaign instead and passing the reins over to none other than Brennan Lee Mulligan.
Oof, that is, I mean, that's kind of, well, Brennan Lee Mulligan is like the other big, like, DM
Yes.
in Dungeons & Dragons
I would say
podcast.
if you had to pick like the top 2 most well-known, most prolific in the real-time D&D play space, it would be those 2.
Yes. And Brennan Lee Mulligan is the guy who DM'd for the one adventure of Critical Role that I've listened to, which was a calamity as honorable
yeah.
member.
And it rocks so hard.
Yeah, it was all right. So I've listened to him. He's quite good. And as a D&D fan, I did enjoy him. But that was kind of like a big thing because Matt Mercer, I think for a lot of people that got into Dungeons and Dragons in the 2010s, 2020s, I mean, that's the DM, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so he's kind of hung up his hat and has adopted the role of a player. And you listened to Critical Role before this, right?
So I was going to get to that. I have not listened to any Critical Role campaign from start to finish before.
Okay.
I have started listening to a couple of them, but ultimately was not really able to get on the train, so to speak. Like, I wasn't able to connect with the characters
It's a commitment.
and the story that were
How
were
far
happening.
did you get? Because the one time I tried to listen to Critical Role before Podpodcastcast, I made it about 10 minutes in and I bounced off.
I've gotten through, I think the farthest I've gotten was in campaign 3. I made it through 12 to 15 episodes.
That's okay. You made it so far, dude. That's like a week's worth of labor. And you were like, nah, not for me, actually.
But so here's the thing about campaign 4 is I think it is different. And so what I would like to say about it is that if you are a person like Samurai who has tried to listen to Critical Role before and failed, I think you should give campaign for a listen.
What's different?
I agree 1,000%.
It's not entirely surprising to hear Honor be like, you know what is a good show.
But
Critical Role.
I think this season in particular is really interesting.
What's different? What has changed?
So it's got a very strong start. Initially, what has happened is there's a guy that's died. His name is Thiazi Fang, and he was an ex-revolutionary, and he was executed by the city. And so the story starts, everyone's showing up at his funeral, and everybody has a different connection to him. Everybody has a different sort of plot thread with all the intrigue going on, because there was a plot to rescue him before he was executed, but it went wrong. So they're trying to figure out what went wrong. So initially, you're thrown into it, and there's all these different story threads. But I think what really is making me the most excited about this season is the characters. Like, the characters just seem so incredibly strong, and it's really aided by Brennan Lee Mulligan as the new DM. His style is very dramatic. People are saying it's almost like an audio drama rather than a D&D podcast, because there's so much like in-character role play and discussion that's happening. There's actually people online who are complaining about it. They're like, why is there so much story happening in my D&D?
That's awesome.
Because there's only been like 2 combats so far in 4 episodes. So I mean, I understand the complaint if you're someone who's very into the mechanics and rules sort of aspect of it.
But to me, when me and Honor listen to Critical Role, Exandria, Unlimited, Calamity, whatever, that one, because they do Dungeons & Dragons uncut, right? They don't really edit it down. One of the longest, weakest parts of Dungeons & Dragons is the combat. If you're not playing, you know what I mean? It's just listening to people do math.
Exactly.
You know? And so that is an interesting... That might really, I think, get more people in, is to change it and be like, all right, this is going to be more like an audio drama, lean more into the podcast as a format. But I also wonder, it still is probably Critical Role, right? I mean, they've still got, like 8 people at this table?
So that's another thing.
Yeah.
There are actually 13 players in this campaign.
No.
It's so
But here's
cool,
how they're
though.
doing it. So for the first 4 episodes, everybody could be called up to the table at any time. They would still only have a maximum of 8 players at the table at any given time, but it was sort of a rotating cast. And so what's going to happen now that the overture is done, and they've introduced all these characters and their main like goals and plot threads, they're going to be splitting up into 3 tables, each of them focused on a different play style. So you have a table that's called the Soldiers, and they're more interested in like combat and rugged adventure, like the sort of classic what you'd think of D&D. And then you've got the Seekers, who are really interested in finding out the mysteries of like the gods and the magic in this world. And then you've got the Schemers, who are sort of manipulating and playing around in the political intrigue in the city.
Interesting. But are all these groups, is the story still supposed to be related across them?
Yes.
Whoa, this is kind of brain exploding. Well, I'm really interested because in some sense Critical Role has been the classical idea of Dungeons and Dragons, right? We're going to play this for 2 years. All right. We're going to fight all kinds of monsters and goblins and ghouls and whatnot. And, we're just going to do this in our basement and have a good time. Whereas other podcasts have tried to do, okay, can we make Dungeons and Dragons into a more rich story making tool, like an improv game, right? And so this seems to be kind of another reinvention of D&D as a show, but I don't know, kind of trying to do both. Is that fair?
I think Brennan Lee Mulligan's prior experience as an improv comedian is actually doing wonders for this format. Because, so Sam, have you ever done improv? Or
every day,
improv?
every time I talk to Honor, I have to. Oh God, what's happening next?
So there's a very common sort of improv game where you'll start a scene and you'll be going, and you'll have to cut and switch to something else to keep the energy up, to keep it funny, basically. And so that sort of skill, like knowing where to cut off a scene and keep the energy moving with 13 characters who are all doing different things, is super valuable, I think, in this case.
Okay, I want to go back. You said any one of the 13 people could be called up. Are they just like waiting
Yeah.
in the studio. This is crazy. This is a crazy person job for crazy people.
Yeah. To be fair, only in those first 4 episodes. But yes, I also just want to throw out real quick that I don't remember the name of it, but this is like a style of D&D play that has existed before.
A West March style campaign. Yeah.
But it is like people play campaigns like this enough that it has a name to be like, oh, there's different groups, but they're all interacting with the same world. So it's not like they're inventing this necessarily, but they are engaging in this way of playing that most people don't do. It's really fascinating.
Madness. A madness, I say. So, but you think it's done... It's made the show a lot better. I mean, well, you haven't even got to that part. Is that right? They've only done the first 4 episodes.
Yeah, so they haven't started the splitting off yet. So I'm very interested to see how that will go. But honestly, I really liked the format where they were all together and they would just rotate and bring people in and out as needed.
Interesting.
That was unpopular, though, I think, for some people.
Sure. I think recommending this show to what I might describe as non-D&D people. I wanted to say normies, but I'll just say non-D&D people. I think one of the things I would hear would be like, it's just too many voices. Like, who am I supposed to... How do I know who is who, you know?
Yes,
but
yeah.
Interesting. Have you listened to other D&D podcasts?
Here and there. Nothing longer than I've tried Critical Role for.
Gotcha. And so I just kind of wanted... You said it's kind of been an improvement from other Critical Role. Mm-hmm. How does it... Is this your favorite D&D podcast so far, or where does this stack up for you?
Yeah, I would say so far.
Whoa. That's crazy. And they've only... I want to say they've just gotten started.
Yes.
I mean, you are 16 hours in.
Yeah. I can tell at least it's more promising than Campaign 3, which I had started on and gotten 10 or 12... How many did I say? 12 to 15 episodes in. Some amount in the low teens.
Allison, what would... And now you've kind of just gotten your toes in. It's so ridiculous that is true. But... You've just started, as has everyone else. This is kind of ongoing. We're getting a live report.
Live update from the Critical Role world.
What would you rate the start of Critical Role Campaign 4? See,
that's a difficult question. My personal enjoyment, very high. If I was just giving a general recommendation, I don't know.
Well, okay, rate for your personal enjoyment.
Okay, my personal enjoyment probably 4.7.
Yes.
4.7.
Yeah.
A near perfect pod.
Here's the thing. The 4th episode, the one that just came out last week, it was 5 hours long, right? So I was going to put it on in the background while I was, doing chores, as you do with 5-hour podcasts.
Naturally.
Hour 1 through like hour 4, I was just sitting on my couch listening to it. I could not do anything else.
Person.
It's so good.
That's it. I just imagine your roommate's coming home and you're just sitting on the couch looking at a blank, just TV is off.
Well, the people are there.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at the YouTube video and it's just like people sitting there and talking, but there's not really like a big visual component.
Were you watching it?
I was watching the YouTube video.
Sorry, just sitting down listening to a podcast and just listen to the podcast is insane. Yeah, I have done it. It is crazy.
Here's the thing. If I was just listening to the podcast version, I probably still would have been doing that. Because there's not a lot to watch. I was just so invested in what was happening in the story.
That is, I think, incredible. They made you sit down for a long
movie. 3 hours. Yeah.
Wow. I feel like I have to give this a try, but then if I like it, I'm a little afraid because I may never see my loved ones again.
You gotta commit.
It would take me a whole week to get through an episode.
And here's the thing. That was the 4th episode, which means you have to listen to, not that the first 12 hours are bad, but you would have to listen to 12 hours of setup before you get to that point where I was so invested.
Oh my gosh. I mean, this comes back to a problem I have had with long D&D podcasts.
Right.
But absolutely fascinating. And maybe I should give this one a try. Maybe this is my entry point into Critical
I would
Role.
say if people have not given Critical Role a try yet, I would say this is a good time to hop on the bus.
You think if there's going to be an entry point, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
If they're going to like it at all.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Well, thank you, Allison. We appreciate you coming by. I appreciate you bringing a near perfect pod and possibly ruining my life. We'll see. I'll report back.
Yes.
You know what else ruins lives?
What's that?
Our inbox at podpodcastcast@gmail.com.
Whoa.
Oh, Okay.
That's not true. That's not true. But you can email us at podpodcastcast@gmail.com, and we'll read it off on the air. So this week, we got an email, and it's not a normal email for us. I might call it a solicitation. It's an email that I don't think was really just sent to us, but I find it amusing, and I don't know that I really want to read off the whole thing, but you guys will get why I find this amusing. The subject line is podcast guest.
Okay.
And we get this email that says, "Hi, Podpodcastcast. I've been listening to your show and thought of a guest who might spark a fresh conversation." Now, you might already have a hint where this is going. A fresh conversation is not what our fans usually say, okay? Our fans usually say, "We want to be called the PP heads," and that's it. You know, they just rave and froth, okay?
That's true.
And then they list a guy's name. I won't read off the guy's name, but we'll call it Bob. Bob is the founder and CEO of Scanbo Technologies Incorporated, a med tech and AI company developing advanced diagnostic technology and secure digital health platforms that combine hardware innovation, cloud infrastructure, and AI-driven analytics for real-time health insights.
Jeez.
There's a lot more in here about like just kind of tech buzzwords that I like.
True word soup.
Did he
like
say
the
what
phrase
podcast?
blockchain level security, which it's not blockchain security necessarily. It's that
It's
level.
on the
It's that
level
low.
of blockchain.
That's crazy.
Also, to be clear, the person who sent us this email, supposedly the person, this is probably they sent this out to a lot, like any podcast they can get a hold on. The person who sent us this email is not the same as Bob. Okay, there's two different people involved.
It's a person sending an email on behalf of Bob.
On behalf of Bob, they just heard of this guy.
Sure.
And they think he would be really interesting. I really like, the email goes on, but it ends like this. Here are some strong angles that could resonate with your listeners.
Oh.
Scaling medtech infrastructure in the cloud without breaking privacy laws.
Gotta
It's
specify.
funny because our listeners love to break privacy
Oh,
laws.
yeah.
The startup playbook for surviving in regulated tech. Why blockchain is the missing piece in digital health. Where AI meets biology, building a digital twin of the human body.
Oh.
If this feels like a fit, we can coordinate scheduling. To pass, just say apples.
To pass, just say apples.
All the best. That's the email.
What?
Right? Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
Isn't that I hope, if the person who wrote this email and then sent it out to like 1,000 people listen to this episode, no hate for you sending to market to Bob at us. I don't care. But it's an amusing, this is the email we got for this week, and I was amused by it because they really were not selective in who they marketed to.
Yeah.
But I think it's fair to say apples about this email. I think we'll be moving on. Hey, but med tech founders, if you want to sponsor Podcast, we'll get Bob in here. If you want to be the next sponsor / entrepreneur that shows up in our inbox, let us know. Send us an email at podpodcastcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. We'd also love to hear your thoughts about podcasts and not just blockchain level security and AI integration. But if you have this too, I guess I'll read it. I'll be like, all right, that's interesting. Honor will refuse. Also, if you like the show, rate us 5 stars wherever you're listening to us. We appreciate that. We also appreciate people who leave comments. You can do comments now.
You can do comments now?
They got comments?
On Spotify?
You can do comments on Spotify, and I heard you can do it on Apple Podcasts, but I haven't done that, so I don't know if it is true.
You could be lying.
I could be lying.
You could be tricking us.
I'm spreading misinformation.
Because it's Halloween.
And if I am, you better leave a comment and let me know. We'll respond to those as well. Allison, thank you for showing up to our podcast. And, I made your scarecrow costume sound scary at the beginning. It's very lovely.
You warmed up to it.
I think, looking at you now, I've forgotten what your face normally looks like.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Gotcha.
And so, but we appreciate you coming on. We appreciate you bringing in a big topic. Is a change in the D&D podcast world. And for the better, it sounds like.
Hopefully. Well, thank you guys for having me as well.
Yes.
We appreciate you. Honor, thank you for potting with me.
Thank you, Sam and Allison, for potting with me.
Perfect. Okay, until next time, as we always say, keep your pods close and your cat. All right. Yep, the podosphere. Perfect. Bye.
Bye.